Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 weeks to reach the Kepler 442 system. Jake was tired but excited. This was supposed to be a simple mission to check if the planets here could support human life. "Sir, we're getting some strange readings," said Lieutenant Bobby Chun from his station. He was young but smart, and Jake trusted his work. "There's something big out there." "Really? Big?" Jake walked over to look at Bobby's screen. The numbers didn't make sense. Whatever was out there was huge, much bigger than any human ship. "Are you sure these readings are right?" Jake asked. "I've checked them 3 times, sir." "There are at least 50 ships out there, maybe more. They're unlike anything we've ever seen." Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her workstation. She was the ship's scientist, always curious about new things. "Commander, I'm picking up energy signatures that are off the charts. These ships are using technology we don't understand." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Humans had been exploring space for over 200 years, but they had never found another intelligent species. Now suddenly, there were dozens of alien ships in front of them. "Send a standard greeting message," Jake ordered. "Let them know we come in peace." Bobby worked at his controls for a few minutes. "Message sent, sir. We're broadcasting on all frequencies." The response came faster than expected. The alien ships began moving toward them. Jake watched as the massive vessels changed course, their dark hulls gleaming in the starlight. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, sleek and deadly looking. "Sir, I'm getting a response," Bobby said. His voice was shaking. "But I can't understand it. The computer is trying to translate." The main screen flickered, and then an image appeared. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The creature looking back at them was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. It wore some kind of armor that seemed to glow with its own light. Alien spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. The computer worked to translate the words, displaying them on the screen. "Primitive species. You have entered Zephyrian space. Surrender or be destroyed." Jake stepped forward. "I am Commander Jake Sullivan of the United Earth Defense Force. We are explorers, not warriors. We mean no harm." The alien's face showed no emotion. "I am War Marshal Kethvor of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species is unknown to us. You will be evaluated and processed according to our laws." "What does that mean?" Jake asked, but the screen went black. Dr. Carter ran to her station. "Commander, I'm detecting massive energy buildup in their weapon systems. They're preparing to fire." "All hands, this is the commander," Jake announced over the ship's speakers. "Battle stations, this is not a drill." The first alien ship fired. A beam of pure energy shot toward the USS Horizon. Jake felt the ship shake as the shields absorbed the blast. But the shields were already down to 60% power. "Return fire," Jake ordered. The Horizon's weapons struck the alien ship, but the energy beams seemed to bounce off its hull like raindrops. The alien ship didn't even slow down. "Our weapons aren't working," Bobby reported. "Their shields are too strong." More alien ships joined the attack. The Horizon shook again and again as energy beams struck it. Sparks flew from damaged equipment. The lights flickered. "Sir, we have to run," Dr. Carter said. "We can't fight them." Jake hated to retreat, but she was right. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. As the Horizon turned to flee, Jake watched the alien fleet continue toward the inner planets. There was a human colony on the 3rd planet, New Pittsburgh. 2 million people lived there. "Can we warn them?" Jake asked. "Already tried, sir," Bobby said. "The aliens are jamming our communications." Jake watched helplessly as the alien fleet moved toward New Pittsburgh. The colony had defense platforms in orbit, powerful weapons that could protect against any human attack. But Jake had seen how useless human weapons were against these aliens. The USS Horizon jumped to faster-than-light speed just as the alien fleet reached New Pittsburgh. Jake's last image was of the massive alien ships, surrounding the small human colony like wolves surrounding a sheep. For 3 days, the Horizon raced toward Earth. During that time, Dr. Carter worked without rest, studying the data they had collected about the aliens. She discovered things that made Jake's blood run cold. "Commander, I've been analyzing their technology," she said. "These Zephyrians are thousands of years ahead of us. Their ships can travel faster than anything we have. Their weapons can destroy entire planets. Their shields can stop any attack we can make. How many ships do they have?" Jake asked, though. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. "From what I could detect, at least 10,000, maybe more, and that's just this one fleet." Jake sat down heavily in his chair. 10,000 ships, each one more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. It seemed impossible. "There's something else," Dr. Carter continued. "I managed to decode some of their communications. They've classified us as Tier 7 primitives. That's the lowest rating they give to any species. What does that mean? It means they don't consider us worth conquering. They're going to exterminate us like insects." Jake stared at the stars rushing past the ship. Somewhere behind them, New Pittsburgh was probably already gone. 2 million people dead because they had run into something beyond their understanding. When the Horizon finally reached Earth, Jake knew his life had changed forever. He was no longer just an explorer. He was the messenger, bringing news of humanity's doom. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire, and they had been conquering worlds for 50,000 years. Now they were coming for Earth, and Jake had no idea how humanity could possibly survive. Admiral Henry Parker sat in the emergency meeting room deep under the Earth's surface. Around the table were the most important military leaders from every human colony. The news Jake Sullivan had brought was worse than anyone had imagined. New Pittsburgh is gone, Admiral Parker said quietly. All 2 million people. The orbital defense platforms lasted less than 10 minutes against their weapons. General Pete Morrison, head of Earth's defense, looked sick. "How is that possible?" "Those platforms could stop anything we've ever built." "Because we've never faced anything like this," Jake said. He had barely slept since arriving on Earth 3 days ago. "Their technology is so far ahead of ours that we might as well be fighting with rocks and sticks." Dr. Carter stood up and activated a holographic display. It showed images of the alien ships they had recorded. "The Zephyrians have been conquering worlds for 50,000 years. They've destroyed over 3,000 different civilizations. Their ships can travel between stars in days, not months like ours. So what do we do?" asked Captain Amy Rodriguez. She was young for a captain, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. "We can't just give up." "Maybe we should," said General Morrison. "If we surrender, maybe they'll let some of us live." "No," Jake said firmly. "I saw their leader, War Marshal Kethver. They don't see us as people. To them, we're just bugs to be stepped on." Admiral Parker studied the holographic images. "What about hit-and-run attacks?" "Our ships are smaller and faster than theirs." "That's suicide," General Morrison said. "Our weapons can't even scratch their shields." "Maybe not," Dr. Carter said thoughtfully. "But I've been studying their attack patterns. They fight like they expect their enemies to be logical. They use formations that work against advanced civilizations." Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we don't fight them like an advanced civilization. Maybe we fight them like primitives." The room fell silent. Finally, Admiral Parker spoke. Explain. Look at how they attacked New Pittsburgh, Dr. Carter said. They came in perfect formation, used overwhelming firepower, and expected the colony to surrender when they saw they were outmatched. It was efficient and logical. And it worked, General Norrison pointed out. Against a colony that fought back logically, Dr. Carter replied. But what if we don't fight logically? What if we do things they don't expect? Jake felt a spark of hope. You mean guerrilla warfare? Exactly. Hide in asteroid fields. Attack from unexpected angles. Use weapons and tactics they've never seen before. Captain Rodriguez stood up. I volunteer for the first mission. Amy, no, Admiral Parker said. It's too dangerous. Sir, with respect, everything is dangerous now. But maybe Dr. Carter is right. Maybe the only way to fight an enemy this advanced is to be primitive. Over the next 2 weeks, a plan was formed. Captain Rodriguez would lead a small fleet of fast ships to attack the Zephyrian fleet near the Proxima Centauri system. They would use the asteroid belt there as cover and try to damage as many alien ships as possible before retreating. 12 other captains volunteered for the mission. They knew it was probably suicide, but they also knew that doing nothing meant certain death for all of humanity. The attack force consisted of 13 ships, all small and fast. They carried every weapon humanity had, from nuclear missiles to particle beams. Jake wanted to go with them, but Admiral Parker needed him on Earth to help plan the defense. The battle happened 3 days later. Jake watched from the command center as the data came in. At first, everything went according to plan. The human ships hid in the asteroid field and waited for the Zephyrian fleet to pass. They're not scanning the asteroids, Captain Rodriguez reported. I think they assumed no one would be stupid enough to hide in here. Well, they're about to learn how stupid we can be, Jake muttered. The human ships struck without warning. They came from all directions, firing everything they had. The Zephyrian ships were caught completely off guard. For the first time since the war began, human weapons actually hit their targets. Direct hit on the lead cruiser, Rodriguez reported. Their shields are down to 80%. 80%? Jake said. That's the best we can do? But then something unexpected happened. The human ships began using the asteroids as weapons, pushing large rocks toward the alien fleet. The Zephyrians seemed confused by this tactic. Their weapons were designed to fight ships, not flying boulders. We're doing damage, Rodriguez said excitedly. 3 ships are showing hull breaches. They're retreating. Jake couldn't believe it. For the first time, the Zephyrians were running from humans, but the victory was short-lived. The alien fleet regrouped and began a systematic attack on the asteroid field. Their weapons turned the rocks into dust, eliminating the human hiding places. All ships retreat now, Rodriguez ordered. We've done what we came to do. 9 of the 13 human ships made it home. 4 were lost, along with 200 brave men and women. But they had proved something important. The Zephyrians could be hurt. War-Marshal Kethvor was furious. Jake saw this in the intercepted communications Dr. Carter had decoded. The alien leader couldn't understand how primitive humans had managed to damage his ships. He's requesting reinforcements, Dr. Carter reported. And he's changing his tactics. He's going to be more careful now. Good, Admiral Parker said. If he's being careful, that means he's worried. Over the following weeks, more hit and run. Attacks were launched. The human fleet was small, but they were learning. They used garbage as decoys, hid in gas clouds, and attacked from directions the aliens never expected. Each battle cost human lives, but each battle also taught them something new about their enemy. The Zephyrians were powerful, but they were also predictable. They fought the same way they had fought for thousands of years. They're like a computer. Dr. Carter explained to Jake. They calculate the best response to every situation, but they can't adapt to something they've never seen before. Jake watched the star charts, showing the alien fleet's slow advance toward Earth. They were still coming, but now they were moving more slowly, more carefully. The humans were making them nervous. "We're not winning," he said to Dr. Carter. "We're just making them angry." "Maybe that's enough," she replied. "Maybe if we make them angry enough, they'll make a mistake." Jake hoped she was right, because in 6 months, maybe less, the Zephyrian fleet would reach Earth. And when they did, humanity would face its final test. The war that everyone said was impossible had begun. And somehow, against all odds, humanity was still fighting. 6 months had passed since the first battle. Jake Sullivan stood in the rebuilt command center, looking at the wall of screens showing the current state of the war. 8 human colonies were gone, their populations dead or missing. But the Zephyrian fleet had also paid a price. They had lost over 300 ships to human attacks. "It's not enough," Admiral Parker said, joining Jake at the screens. "We're trading colonies for ships, and they have a lot more ships than we have colonies." Lieutenant Bobby Chun ran up to them, excitement in his voice. "Sir, I think I've found something important, really important." Jake turned to look at the young officer. Bobby had been working non-stop, analyzing every bit of data from the battles. "What is it?" "I've been studying the way their shields work," Bobby said. "They're designed to stop energy weapons and fast-moving objects, but I think they have a weakness." Dr. Carter joined them, carrying a tablet full of calculations. "Bobby's?" "Right. Look at this data from the battle at Alpha Centauri. When Captain Rodriguez's ship fired that broken missile, it actually penetrated their shields." "The missile was damaged," Admiral Parker said. "It was spinning and wobbling. I thought it was just luck." "That's what I thought too," Bobby said. "But then I looked at all the other times we've damaged their ships. Every single time, it was with weapons that weren't working properly." Jake felt a spark of understanding. "You're saying their shields are programmed to stop weapons that work correctly?" "Exactly," Dr. Carter said. "Their shields use computers to predict how weapons will behave. But if a weapon is broken or behaves strangely, the computer can't predict it." "There's more," Bobby continued. "I've been analyzing their battle tactics. They use the same formations, the same strategies, over and over. It's like they're following a rule book." "They probably are," Dr. Carter said. "They've been conquering worlds for 50,000 years. They've developed the perfect way to fight every type of advanced civilization." "But we're not advanced," Jake said slowly. "We're primitive, right? And primitives don't follow the rules." Admiral Parker was quiet for a moment, thinking. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we stop trying to fight them with proper weapons," Dr. Carter said. "We start using weapons that are deliberately broken, unpredictable, and primitive." "That's crazy," Admiral Parker said. "Sir, this whole war is crazy," Bobby pointed out. "We're losing anyway. What do we have to lose?" Jake looked at the screens again. The Zephyrian fleet was getting closer to Earth every day. In 3 months, maybe less, they would arrive. "What kind of weapons are you talking about?" Dr. Carter smiled. "Weapons that violate every rule of modern warfare. Explosives that detonate randomly. Missiles that change course for no reason. Guns that fire irregularly." "You want to arm our ships with broken weapons?" "I want to arm our ships with weapons that are broken on purpose," she corrected. "Weapons that are so primitive and unpredictable that their computers can't figure out how to stop them." Over the next month, Dr. Carter worked with Chief Engineer Maria Santos to develop what they called Project Caveman. They created weapons that seemed to make no sense. Missiles that spun wildly through space. Guns that fired in random patterns. Explosives that went off at unexpected times. "This is either brilliant or insane," Maria said as she tested one of the new weapons. "Maybe both." The first test came at the Battle of Alpha Centauri. The Zephyrian fleet had been slowly advancing through the system, destroying everything in their path. Jake led a fleet of 20 ships, all armed with the new primitive weapons. "Remember," he told his captains, "don't think like soldiers. Think like cavemen. Do things that make no sense." The battle began like all the others. The Zephyrians formed perfect battle lines and began their systematic attack. But this time, the humans responded differently. Instead of retreating or taking cover, Jake ordered a direct charge at the alien fleet. The human ships flew straight at the enemy, firing their bizarre weapons in all directions. "Sir, this is suicide," Captain Rodriguez said over the communication system. "Trust me," Jake replied. "And remember, act crazy." The human ships dove toward the alien fleet like angry wasps. Their weapons fired in patterns that made no sense. Missiles corkscrewed through space, some exploding early, others late. The particle beams flickered on and off randomly. The Zephyrian ships tried to respond, but their targeting computers couldn't track the erratic human weapons. Their shields, designed to stop predictable attacks, were useless against weapons that behaved randomly. "Direct hit on the lead cruiser," Bobby reported. "Their shields are down." "All ships, concentrate fire on the damaged cruiser," Jake ordered. The human fleet swarmed around the alien ship like angry insects. Their primitive weapons tore through its hull. Within minutes, the mighty Zephyrian cruiser was destroyed. War Marshal Kethver's flagship tried to retreat, but the human ships pursued it. Jake watched on his screen as Captain Rodriguez's ship rammed into the alien vessel, both ships exploding in a ball of fire. "Amy, no." Jake shouted, but it was too late. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, 12 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed. The human fleet had lost 8 ships, but they had proved something important. The aliens could be beaten. Jake stood on the bridge of his damaged ship, looking at the wreckage floating in space. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Captain Rodriguez was dead, along with 300 other brave souls. "Sir, we're getting a communication from the Zephyrian flagship," Bobby reported. Jake looked at the screen. War Marshal Kethver appeared, but he looked different now. His armor was cracked, and there was something that might have been fear in his large black eyes. "Human Commander," the alien said, "you fight unlike any species we have encountered. Your tactics are illogical." "That's the point," Jake replied. "You cannot win this war. We have thousands of ships remaining." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But we're going to make you pay for every one of them." The communication ended. Jake turned to Dr. Carter, who was smiling despite the damage to the ship. "Did you see that?" she asked. He was scared. For the first time, they're actually scared of U.S. "Good," Jake said, "because now we know how to hurt them." The news of the victory spread quickly through human space. For the first time since the war began, people had hope. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 3,000 worlds, had been defeated by primitive human weapons. But Jake knew the war was far from over. The aliens would adapt, just as humans had. The next battle would be even harder. Still, they had learned something valuable. The Zephyrians' greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. They were so advanced, so perfect in their methods, that they couldn't handle an enemy that refused to follow the rules. And humans, Jake realized, had never been very good at following rules anyway. The victory at Alpha Centauri had changed everything. Jake Sullivan, now promoted to Admiral, stood in the war room watching as human forces launched attacks across 3 star systems. The primitive weapons were working better than anyone had hoped. "We've liberated 4 colonies in the past month," General Pete Morrison reported. "The aliens are retreating from the outer systems." "Don't get too confident," Admiral Parker warned. "They're not retreating. They're regrouping." Jake studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was moving in a new pattern, pulling back from scattered positions and forming a massive formation. "They're planning something big." Dr. Carter looked up from her analysis station. "I've been monitoring their communications. War Marshal Kethver is under pressure from his superiors. He's been ordered to end this war quickly." "How?" Jake asked. "By attacking Earth directly. He's bringing his entire remaining fleet here." The room fell silent. Everyone knew this moment would come eventually, but seeing it happen was still frightening. The Zephyrian Empire was throwing everything they had at humanity's home world. "How many ships?" Admiral Parker asked quietly. "Over 6,000, Dr. Carter replied. "It's the largest fleet they've ever assembled." Jake felt his stomach drop. Even with their new weapons, facing 6,000 enemy ships seemed impossible. When will they arrive? 2 weeks, maybe less. Admiral Parker turned to General Morrison. "What's the status of Earth's defenses?" "We've been preparing for this," Morrison said. "The entire solar system is ready. We've got weapons platforms hidden in the asteroid belt, defense stations around every planet, and over 2,000 ships ready to fight." "It won't be enough," Jake said. "Not against 6,000 ships." "Maybe not," Morrison replied. "But we're not going to make it easy for them. Over the next 10 days, the entire human fleet gathered around Earth. Ships came from every colony, every outpost, every mining station. They brought with them the new primitive weapons and a fierce determination to protect their home. Jake commanded the defense from the bridge of the USS Defiant, a new ship built specifically for this war. It was fast, tough, and armed with the most advanced primitive weapons humanity could build. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up the alien fleet," Lieutenant Bobby Chon reported. "They're dropping out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter." Jake looked at the main screen. The Zephyrian fleet was massive, stretching across space like a dark cloud. Their ships gleamed with deadly beauty, each one capable of destroying a city. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," Jake announced. "Today, we fight for our home. Today, we show these aliens what humans can do when we're fighting for survival." The battle began as the alien fleet moved past Jupiter. The first human attack came from the gas giant's moons, where massive railguns had been hidden. The primitive weapons fired chunks of metal at incredible speed, striking the alien ships before they could react. "Direct hits on the leading edge," Bobby reported. "We've damaged at least 20 ships." But the Zephyrian fleet barely slowed down. They returned fire, their energy weapons destroying the moon-based platforms in minutes. The human defenders. They died heroically, but their sacrifice had drawn first blood as the alien fleet moved toward Mars. The second wave of attacks began. Captain Rodriguez's replacement, Captain Tim Brady, led a squadron of ships in a kamikaze attack on the alien formation. They flew straight into the enemy fleet, their ships packed with nuclear explosives. "For Amy Rodriguez," Captain Brady shouted. As his ship exploded against an alien cruiser, the explosions tore through the Zephyrian formation, destroying dozens of ships. But there were still thousands left, and they were learning to adapt to human tactics. "They're changing their formation," Dr. Carter observed. "They're spreading out more, making it harder for us to hit multiple ships." Jake watched as the alien fleet approached Earth. The planet's orbital defenses opened fire, thousands of weapons striking at the enemy ships. But the Zephyrians had learned from their previous defeats. They stayed at long range, using their superior firepower to slowly destroy the human defenses. "Sir, we're losing the orbital platforms," Bobby reported. "They're picking us apart." Jake made a decision, that went against all military training. All ships, prepare for full attack. We're going to ram them. Sir, that's suicide, his communications officer said. Maybe, Jake replied. But it's also the most primitive tactic there is, and it might be the only thing they won't expect. The human fleet charged toward the alien formation. Every ship was armed with the most unpredictable weapons humanity could create. They fired randomly, explosively, chaotically. The Zephyrian tactical computers couldn't keep up with the madness. Jake's ship dove toward War Marshal Kethver's flagship. The alien vessel was huge, 10 times the size of the Defiant. Its weapons could have destroyed Jake's ship in seconds, but the targeting computers were confused by the erratic human attack patterns. All power to forward shields, Jake ordered. We're going to ram them. The Defiant struck the alien flagship at full speed. The impact was tremendous, tearing through both ships. Jake felt the bridge shaking apart around him, sparks flying from damaged equipment. Hull breach on decks 5 through 12, Bobby reported. We're losing atmosphere. But the ramming attack had worked. The alien flagship was crippled. Its hull cracked open like an egg. Through the breach, Jake could see Zephyrian soldiers running in panic. Boarding teams go. Jake ordered Sergeant Kate Williams led a group of Marines through the breach into the alien ship. They fought their way through corridors designed for beings much taller than humans, using primitive weapons that the aliens couldn't understand. We've got them, sir, Kate reported. They don't know how to fight hand-to-hand combat. They're too dependent on their technology. The battle for the flagship lasted 2 hours. When it was over, War Marshal Kethver himself was captured, along with most of his command staff. The sight of their leader in human hands broke the morale of the remaining Zephyrian fleet. Sir, the alien ships are pulling back, Bobby reported. They're requesting communication. Jake looked at the screen. A different alien appeared, one he hadn't seen before. This one looked older, with scars on his gray skin. Human commander. The alien said, I am Sub-Marshal Veltar. War Marshal Kethver is no longer in command. We ... We request terms of surrender. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 3,000 worlds, were surrendering to humanity. What terms? Jake asked. We will withdraw from human space. We will not attack your species again. In return, we ask for the safe return of our personnel. Jake looked around the damaged bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded, but they had won. Against all odds, humanity had defeated the most powerful empire in the galaxy. We accept your surrender, Jake said. But understand this. If you ever threaten humanity again, we will hunt you down and destroy you. The alien nodded. We understand. We have learned much about your species. You are unlike any enemy we have faced. As the Zephyrian fleet retreated, Jake stood among the wreckage of his bridge. The cost had been terrible. Thousands of ships destroyed, millions of people dead. But Earth was safe, and humanity had proven that even the most advanced enemy could be defeated. Sir, Bobby said quietly, what happens now? Jake looked at the stars, where the alien fleet was disappearing into the distance. Now we rebuild, and we make sure this never happens again. The war was over, but Jake knew that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they had learned that sometimes the most primitive solution was the most effective one. 3 months after the surrender, Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, the same ship where this whole adventure had begun. But now he was heading to the Zephyrian homeworld, not as an explorer, but as humanity's first ambassador to an alien species. It's strange, Dr. Carter said, joining him at the observation window. A year ago, we didn't even know they existed. Now we're going to their home planet. Jake nodded, watching the stars. "Are you nervous about meeting with their leaders?" "A little," she admitted, "but mostly I'm curious. We've learned so much about their technology, but we still don't understand their society. The journey to the Zephyrian homeworld took 2 weeks. During that time, Jake received regular reports from Earth about the changes happening across the galaxy. The news was remarkable. "Sir, we're getting reports of rebellions in over 50 star systems," Lieutenant Bobby Chun reported. "Species that were conquered by the Zephyrians are fighting for their freedom." "How are they doing?" Jake asked. "Most are winning," Bobby replied. "The Zephyrian military is in complete chaos. They don't know how to fight multiple enemies at once." Jake wasn't surprised. The Zephyrians had spent 50,000 years conquering other species, but they had never faced a situation where their subjects fought back all at once. When they finally arrived at the Zephyrian homeworld, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The planet was beautiful, with gleaming cities that stretched across entire continents. But there was something sad about it, too. Everything looked old, as if nothing new had been built in centuries. "It's like a museum," Dr. Carter observed. "Beautiful, but frozen in time." The Zephyrian delegation met them at the spaceport. Jake recognized Sub-Marshal Veltar, who had negotiated the surrender. The alien looked tired and defeated. "Welcome to Zephyria," Veltar said through a translator device. "The High Council is waiting to meet with you." As they traveled through the city, Jake noticed something odd. The Zephyrian people they passed looked at them with curiosity, not fear or anger. Some even seemed hopeful. "They're not angry with us," Dr. Carter whispered to Jake. "I expected them to hate us for defeating their empire." "Maybe they're tired of war," Jake replied. The High Council meeting was held in a massive hall that could have held 1,000 people. But there were only 12 Zephyrian leaders present, all of them looking ancient and weary. The eldest of them, who introduced himself as High Counselor Moron, spoke first. "Ambassador Sullivan, we have called this meeting to discuss the future of our peoples." "I'm listening," Jake replied. "Our empire is crumbling," Moron continued. "For 50,000 years, we have conquered world after world, believing that our strength made us superior. But you have shown us that strength without wisdom is useless." "What do you mean?" Dr. Carter asked. Another counselor, a female named Kesta, answered. "We became so focused on perfecting our technology that we forgot how to grow, how to change, how to adapt. We conquered other species, but we never learned from them." "Your people taught us something we had forgotten," Moron said. "That sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. That being primitive can be an advantage." Jake was beginning to understand. "You're saying your advancement was actually holding you back?" "Exactly," Veltar said. "We had become so dependent on our computers, our perfect strategies, our advanced weapons, that we couldn't think creatively anymore. When you attacked us with broken weapons and illogical tactics, we couldn't adapt. So what happens now?" Jake asked. "We want to learn," Moron said. "We want to send students to your worlds to study how humans think, how you solve problems, how you innovate." Jake was surprised. "You want to learn from us?" "Yes," Kesta said. "We also want to help the species we conquered. We have technology that could help them rebuild their civilizations. But we need your help to organize it." "You want us to help you help your former enemies?" Dr. Carter asked. "We believe it is the right thing to do," Moron replied. "And we believe your species has the wisdom to guide us." Over the following months, Jake found himself in a role he had never expected: leader of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Representatives from dozens of species came to Earth, all wanting to learn from the humans who had defeated the mighty Zephyrian Empire. The Alliance's first project was helping the liberated worlds rebuild. Many of them had been under Zephyrian rule for thousands of years, and had forgotten how to govern themselves. "It's like teaching people to walk again," Jake explained to Admiral Parker during one of their regular communications. "These species are incredibly advanced, but they've been slaves for so long they don't remember how to be free." The work was challenging but rewarding. Jake spent his days meeting with alien leaders, helping them establish new governments and solve disputes between different species. The humans found themselves in the strange position of being the mediators in a galaxy full of beings far more advanced than they were. One of the most interesting developments was the relationship with War Marshal Kethver. The former Zephyrian commander had been held as a prisoner of war on Earth, but he had become fascinated by human culture. "Your species is remarkable," he told Jake during one of their conversations. "You have been exploring space for only a few hundred years, yet you think in ways that never occurred to us." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "You see problems as puzzles to be solved, not obstacles to be overcome with force," Kethvar explained. "When we first encountered you, we thought you were simply too primitive to understand the futility of resistance. But you were actually too creative for us to predict." "Is that why you lost?" "We lost because we had forgotten how to learn," Kethvar said. "We had become so confident in our superiority that we stopped questioning our methods. Your people never stopped questioning anything." Jake found these conversations helpful in understanding how to work with the other liberated species. Many of them had the same problem as the Zephyrians. They had become so focused on being advanced that they had lost the ability to think simply. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Carter suggested creating mixed schools where young beings from different species could learn together. The first one was established on Earth, bringing together children from 12 different worlds. "The idea is to let them learn from each other," Dr. Carter explained to Jake as they watched the young aliens playing together in the schoolyard. "The human children teach them to think creatively, while the alien children share their advanced knowledge." The experiment was a huge success. The young beings learned to combine human creativity with alien technology, creating innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. Within a year, similar schools were established on dozens of worlds. But the most important change was happening among the adults. The liberated species began to work together, sharing technology and knowledge in ways that had been impossible under Zephyrian rule. Trade routes were established, scientific collaboration began, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy was at peace. Jake often thought about how much had changed since that first encounter with the Zephyrian fleet. Humanity had gone from being an unknown species to being the leaders of a galactic alliance. It was a responsibility he had never wanted, but one he was proud to carry. "Do you ever miss the old days?" Bobby Chun asked him one evening as they watched the sunset from the Alliance headquarters on Earth. Bobby had been promoted to Jake's chief of staff and was now one of his closest advisors. "Sometimes," Jake admitted, "things were simpler when we were just explorers. But would you change anything?" Jake thought about all the species they had helped, all the worlds that were now free, all the young beings learning to think in new ways. "No," he said finally, "I wouldn't change anything." The final scene of this incredible journey took place 5 years after the war's end. Jake stood before a gathering of representatives from over 100 different species, all of them working together to build a better galaxy. Admiral Parker, now in his 80s, had traveled from Earth to attend the ceremony. He looked proud as he watched Jake address the crowd. "5 years ago, we were strangers to each other," Jake said. "Some of us were enemies. But we learned that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. We learned that the most advanced technology is useless without wisdom, and that wisdom comes from understanding each other." The crowd applauded, a sound that mixed dozens of different species' ways of showing approval. Jake saw Zephyrians standing next to the beings they had once enslaved, all of them working together now. Today, we established the Galactic Council, Jake continued. A government where every species has a voice, where decisions are made through cooperation, not conquest, where the goal is not to be the strongest, but to be the wisest. As the ceremony ended, Jake found himself standing with Dr. Carter and Kethver, watching as representatives from across the galaxy mingled and shared ideas. You know, Kethver said, when I first met your species, I thought you were too primitive to be worth our attention. And now? Dr. Carter asked. Now I realize that being primitive was your greatest strength, he replied. You hadn't learned yet that some things were impossible, so you did them anyway. Jake smiled. Maybe that's the most important lesson of all, that the word impossible is just another problem to be solved.